Florida. Any
Yeah.
chance you're going to Podfest over in Orlando?
I am not actually. I've heard great things
Okay.
about it, though. Yeah.
I was hoping maybe we'll get to meet up in person next week, but that's all right.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Sarasota, Florida. All right. I almost lived in Orlando for, I almost took a publishing job over there in the sand. I got real close to getting stuck in my shoes, as they say. Are you a native or are you a
Oh
transplant to
gosh.
Florida?
No. I grew up in the Dallas area.
Okay.
Born in Jersey, but grew up in Dallas, and then came to Florida for my general surgery and urology training back when I was in my old life in traditional medicine. And then moved to Sarasota in '04. So I've been here in Sarasota for 21 years now. 20 years, almost 21. Yeah.
Okay. So like a native at this point. But
Almost
with
like a
that,
Nate, right? Yeah.
there you go. Way to be smart. With that
Yeah.
perspective there,
Right.
Dallas, I'm in New Braunfels, Texas.
Oh, I love New
How
Braunfels.
how
Yeah.
many years did you spend in Dallas?
Well, I moved there with my family when I was 7, and I was there all the way through high school, college. I went to Texas A&M, came
Okay.
back from medical school to Dallas, and then I moved out in 1998, came to Florida. So I spent many a day tubing in New Braunfels and almost cracked my head open on one of the rocks under the water there in one of the big rapids.
At the tube shoot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Where all the beer trolls wait for the beer to get dumped over so they can steal the beer. Yeah, that's where I almost
That's it.
cracked my head open there. Yeah,
Welcome home.
that's right.
Come up and visit. Come back and visit anytime, Tracy.
There you go.
So peak
Wow.
performance, health, business, the whole 9 yards. There's so much we can talk about here. We set some pretty great ground rules going into this. Throw any haymakers and punches you need to really just open this up for
Yeah.
the visionary leaders who are jumping in with us and checking this out. Going back through time, looking at where you've gotten to, all that you've dedicated to this, what are 3 resources that you would recommend to other visionary leaders out there that they should be considering consuming?
Great question. So I think that my story comes through the world of traditional medicine, and I made a really big pivot, a really big move, transition in my career and in my life. But it came through motivation from the book 10x is easier than 2x, and the book actually came out after I made the move, but it embodies it is the epitome of everything that I love. And so I think that's one of the most powerful books out there to get people to think differently. And 10x is easier than 2x is written by amazing author Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, and they've written Who Not How, which is incredible. They've written The Gap in the Game, which is another amazing book as well. But 10x is easier than 2x talks about, don't look for incremental change. Look how you can massively change the way we think about things. And that's what really was my driving motivation and purpose in leaving traditional medicine. So I was a board certified urologist. I was running a busy surgical practice, doing robotic surgery, treating prostate cancer, saving lives every day, making 7 figures. And I literally walked away from it and started from scratch by my own volition, my own choice, my own intention, because I followed my heart, I followed my passion, and I had a vision for something much bigger than our failing, miserable, traditional, disease-focused, failing healthcare system. And so 10x easier than 2x really embodies that approach.
I love that you mentioned that book. There's a number of reasons. One, shout out to Isabel Fortin, who just came on this show. She became a client of ours as well. And she told me a story. She wrote a post about 10x is easier than 2x on LinkedIn. And Benjamin Hardy reached out to her, loved her post so much, sent her a book, and then sent her a box of 12 books to give away to others.
Amazing.
So big shout out to Isabel with Against the Ordinary. And I did not realize, I didn't put 2 and 2 together, that they also wrote The Gap in the Game. I just had fun playing with that because of your last name, but
that's right.
It makes sense, man. The people who, that's like the greatest evidence of 10x is easier than 2x too. The fact that they're 2 of the staples, right, in this conversation about what are 3 resources. I'm gonna honestly admit I have not yet read the book.
Yeah.
But I live the principle. And I always say, like, have you ever tried to get a drop of water out of an eye drop? You can't do it, but you can take a cup of water and transfer it to another cup like super easily without worrying about anything, because 10x is easier than 2. So what's resource number 2? You just hit really hard. I love that.
So I, focus on optimized health, peak performance, and longevity. And along with that, there's a lot of lifestyle components: nutrition, sleep, fitness, mindset, stress, environmental toxins. And then there's the fun molecules, the sexy peptides and stuff we could talk about. But when it comes to that first big block of lifestyle stuff, the biggest challenge people have is, how do I get started and how do I stay consistent with, I know what I'm supposed to do, but how do I actually do it? And so the book that I'm going to bring up here aligns with that, and that is Tiny Habits by James Clear. Ooh. Amazing book. Tiny Habits, and there's Atomic Habits out there as well. Tiny Habits I'm going to focus on today. Amazing book. He talks about how for you to create real change in your life, first of all, it has to be easy, right? So it needs to be, think of, instead of trying to move boulders, we're talking baby steps, but it has to be attached to something in your existing life. So he talks about ABC, and A is something that you can use as an anchor. So for example, his example was, every time I brush my teeth, I'm going to do 2 push-ups. That's a very small habit. Anyone could do 2 push-ups, right?
Yep.
Now you can go and do 50 if you want to,
That's
but you
cool.
got to do 2. That's creating the tiniest, easiest habit you can imagine. Just two push-ups.
I love that.
And it's anchored to something that you do in your existing day already. That's a trigger to do that.
When I brush my teeth, or it's when I floss. When I floss, I actually put my leg up on the counter and do a stretch until I'm done with the one side, and then I do the exact opposite on the other. I had no idea I was doing the Tiny Habits
thing. One example, sure, yeah. And I think actually his was when he peed, he'd do 2 push-ups, but he did the same thing with flossing. He gives a lot of other examples, but I really use that approach with clients to get them to enact lifestyle change, because it's hard to enact change. And, we talk about how you have to do something for 66 days before it really becomes established and ingrained in your lifestyle. But how do you do that? And so A is anchor, B is behavior, and then C is celebrate. So tiny behavior, easy behavior. And then C is you have to freaking celebrate it. And this kind of goes back to the gap in the gain concept too, where you have to be able to recognize the progress that you have made, celebrate that, realize it's a win, no matter how small it is, instead of focusing on this ideal perspective of where you think you should be. Yeah. And don't should all over yourself. Instead, recognize and appreciate, acknowledge the win.
That's the sad reality is people see it as a have to, but it's a get to. It's an opportunity, right? Those celebrations are something that give us new positive energy to move forward. So that's fantastic. What's number 3?
So that's Tiny Habits. Love that book. Amazing transformation when it comes to personal development. And then the third one, I'll come back to. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I'm a doctor, by trade, but I'm an entrepreneur stuck in a doctor's body for 25 years. I love the book Traction, and Traction's all about the EOS model. And I think that everyone, any business owner, any leader, any entrepreneur needs a foundation for how they run their business. So I love the concept of quarterly rocks. I love the concept of setting very clear SOPs. And you and I were talking before we came live about employees and, how do you train a team? And I'm here trying to build an amazing team of high performing leaders around me. And how do I ensure that we're providing a consistent, reliable outcome for our clients? And so I love Traction. EOS model has been proven for decades, but just the book to get you to think about it differently, to me, is amazing.
It's a huge one. I haven't read that book either. I read their book Rocket Fuel, and I'm super glad that I had already read the foundation of the E-Myth. So it's an interesting opportunity for those of you listening in. These books, while you may feel like they're out of your league, get the audio book, right? Watch the YouTube video first. And if you feel like you've gone on and moved beyond these, then I hope that you have an infrastructure at scale that's monstrous, because if you don't, you failed to pay attention to what's possible with these books in hand. These are the foundation cornerstones of things that pass the test of time and people that build legacies that truly matter. I see so many leaders out there in the podcast world that have a level D, C, or B mindset. Right. They're not class A actors or class A leaders. They want to be considered that way, but no, that gets reserved for very few. You got to be Richard Branson level. You got to be Jeff Bezos level. You got to be where people know your name. And if you're not there, it's not because you have to be either. But if that's where you want to be, then as Tracy talked about, you got the opportunity to step into celebrating more, creating simpler habits, and moving into it. We're going to be diving into more peak performance topics. But honestly, guys, this was already a masterclass on golden principles to practice peak performance and get into the habit of improving your health, improving your business. If you just put these resources to use for your life and never listen to another word we say, you will certainly be on a greater trajectory. But we're going to come back, talk in more depth about what's possible and try to unlock some more secrets. We'll see you guys all on the other side. All right. Welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Calame. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. What's up, and welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Calame, founder and CEO of First Class Business, and I'm super excited to have Tracy Gapin on the stage today talking to me about his vision related to peak performance in health and business. This is one of my absolute favorite topics. This is what I live for. I remember teaching in a in a brokerage of realtors, and one guy said, "Jackson, how much coffee did you have this morning?" And I said, oh, I don't drink coffee, my friend. I don't need it. I am ready to go at all times, everywhere, pretty much. So if you're having trouble keeping up with me, you might ask me to slow down. I'm going to ask you to listen a little bit faster. So we're about getting off and helping you guys as much as possible. And I could see that Tracy came in with that exact same energy, which gets me super excited. He was also recommended here by Harry Vashish. And Harry has turned into quite the executive with us. Now, before I bring Tracy back on, some of the other resources I'm going to recommend to you, divide and conquer, my friends. Being able to delegate and get people in the game to be able to help you is one of the most important things you can do. In the top right corner, we've got a big shout out for Oportunidades de Trabajo para Latinos. I have the same program, Opportunities, for the Philippines now, for India now, and we're now starting to build it out in Pakistan. But my Latino team, I got to give a huge shout out. They've crushed it with this. They've got almost 900 people in the group now. They're interviewing other Latino leaders on their own podcast to help promote Latino success and inspire those Latinos who have never even heard of LinkedIn. They never heard of Upwork. They never heard of Canva, etc. How to become digital amateurs, how to join the workforce that's online, remote workers. Some of you call it VAs, but we don't do VA relationships. We call that virtual abuse. I'm tired of seeing so many business owners not take interest in these wonderful individuals who help us grow our brands. We have a very different way of going about it. So if you know of a Latino who'd like to join us on this, who'd like to be a leader on that podcast, please reach out, get in touch with my team. We've hired like 10 people in the last 3.5 weeks now to continue to help us expand and grow this process. So we're looking for people who want to help Latinos rise up and achieve their own version of economic success and start to learn about these resources that you and I perhaps take for granted a little bit. Then there's another person who's actually crushing it with that. His name is Zach Ullman of learnandgrowrich.net. Zach Ullman has become a very dear friend of mine, and he's also now our chief financial officer at First Class Business. His program, Learn and Grow Rich, helps people do exactly what it says. And he's one of the most giving people that I've met. He gives his templates out there. He's got his procedures, resources, and templates down pat, just like we do. We've joined forces in order to help all of you. Now, the cool thing is you can actually work with Zach without working with us. That's totally fine. We have abundant mindsets with how we go about things. But I highly recommend checking out what he's up to. He is that CFO that I have been trying to find for years, and I've been trying to emulate for more than a decade. And why is this so important to me? I needed a CFO that could scale with me, meaning somebody that could also provide that level of service and caliber of service to others, not just to my brand. So I can't endorse Zach enough for what he's up to. He lives down in Colombia as well. And he just 2 weeks ago, he did an amazing project of humanitarian work with over 1,500 children that showed up for that event. So go and check out what Zach's up to. He's changing the world in big ways. Then there's the Water Project. The Water Project we don't work directly with, but I am a monthly contributor to this program. I have never been thirsty in my life, right? No matter how things have gotten hard. When I came across the Water Project and was looking for yet another cause to represent as a brand, it dawned on me that these kids, the parents, the whole communities, the amount of impact we can make by solving this water problem for them is immense. And as you meditate on it, it's hard not to cry about it. It's also hard not to realize, like, man, these kids, they celebrate water like my kids celebrate Christmas Day. And that's the type of impact you can have. You get to pick the community that you're getting involved with. You get to see it just like a Kickstarter. You get to see that project come to fruition. And when that happens, I mean, you just can't help but feel all the goods. We're talking about a change that can dramatically improve an entire village or society over the course of 5 to 10 years and beyond, because the training they get. Again, I hope you can join me on that and give back. If you're not in a financial position, though, to help out with this right now, my hope is that you'll just go talk about it with friends. Maybe tag somebody that comes to mind that you were thinking about and say, you know what, hey, I think you'd take interest in this project. That's a fantastic way to make an impact. You never know how far the ripple effect of the good you do or the promotion you do will go. But we got 8 billion people to help in this planet. So my hope is that, well, as long as I'm going to rock the mic, I'm going to do my best to try to spread the word and get more people to help me on that. In the meantime, we're going to help each and every single one of you by bringing Tracy back on stage and talking about peak performance to our max capacity. So Tracy, welcome back to Vision Pros Live, my friend.
Hey, thanks so much. Glad to be back with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tracy, let's dive in with the people that you're most prepared to make the biggest impact with. How would you define who they are? Who could really benefit from what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. So my passion focus has always been on the men's health arena. As I mentioned, I'm a board certified urologist of 25 years, or now a recovering board certified urologist, I guess I could say. My passion is really working with men who, I really believe need to be a present and engaged husband, father to their kids, most importantly, leader in the community. And I recognize that our healthcare system is failing them. And so to me, working with entrepreneurs, founders, executives, retired athletes, business owners, men who are trying to be a lot to a lot of different people. And I was one of those men. I was neglecting my own health, and I was putting all these other priorities in front of it until it caught up with me. And so I feel like we need to shift the paradigm when it comes to men's health and performance. And, people throw around this phrase peak performance all the time. And that phrase means a lot to everyone. So for some people, it's an Olympic athlete. It's an NFL football player. It is an Ironman. It is someone who's doing a Spartan race. But to me, peak performance also applies to someone who's, running a team. It's trying to start a small business and struggling and grinding and trying to be that leader to everybody. That person who's trying to be the best for their spouse, men and women, trying to be a parent to their kids. And I think that's the most important job we have, is to show up and to be present and engaged, father or mother to our children.
It's huge.
To me, that's what peak performance is all about. How can I get my mind and body to function at the highest level so I can be my absolute best in business, in life, as a parent, as a leader, anywhere? To me, that's what peak performance is all about. And so to do that, we got to get out of this broken, disease-focused, passive reactive healthcare system, if you can call it that we're stuck in, because it's not working.
Yeah, I love that. And there's certainly a shift we can move towards. I think people are so aware of that listen to the show, of how broken that is, that we're not going to dive in and conquer that today. I'd rather stay high level with the aspect of like, okay, so if we've got people that heard that and are like, I'm in, that's me, right? That's what I'm looking for and want to accomplish. Let's just start diving in. Yeah. What are the next steps? What are some of the things that they can do that they may typically overlook? Not the perfect path, but the overlooked shortcuts and secrets, like the flute in Mario. It's like, all right, I can just grab this flute and go far. I might miss some things, but let's have some fun with it.
Yeah. So I always like to say, find your blind spots. It starts there. It starts with comprehensive blood labs and functional testing to find your blind spots. And a lot of examples of this, I love to talk about Bob Harper. He and I should become friends one day, as much as I bring up his story. But Bob Harper is the lead fitness trainer on the TV show The Biggest Loser. And that guy looks great. He's on TV teaching people how to lose weight and get in shape. And he's the epitome of good health. And Bob Harper looked healthy. At the age of 51, he had a heart attack. He almost died. How is that possible? Well, for him, it was Lp(a). It was a lipid subtype, a genetically inherited subtype of LDL that was his blind spot. I see high performers every day. I have NFL players. I have some NFL wide receiver divas who I'm taking care of, I won't name their names, who have free testosterone levels in the tank. and somehow they're able to muster up enough energy to perform at an elite level. But we're talking issues like gut health, like your gut controls your whole body. Most people don't ever look at that. Hormones, blood sugar regulation, how you're, not just for diabetics, we're talking about everybody. Inflammation, all these key biomarkers. And so getting the comprehensive blood labs helps you understand what are the blind spots that are either holding you back, affecting your energy, your focus, your drive, or they're problems that are lurking under the surface waiting to cause a problem when you least expect it. My brother-in-law, John, he was this larger than life guy. He looked amazing. He's in the gym every day, lifting heavy weights. He's eating perfectly clean every day. He looks, again, the epitome of good health. And one morning getting ready for work, my brother-in-law, John, at the age of 49, dropped dead.
Oh, man.
And so he would always tell me too, it's ironic that he would always tell me, Tracy, you don't get today back. You don't get today back. He would always say that phrase to me. And I was like, yeah, John, you're right. Yeah. But now it's a different message to think back on it. And so find your blind spots to identify what do you need to fix. And for everyone, that's different. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll hit back on the last one that, God called him home, in my opinion. And so there's that reality that we don't have full control over the outcome. But we do have lots of opportunity to assess, okay, did I do what I needed to maximize what I wanted to accomplish or what I needed to accomplish in this life? And I really think that's what this is about. So on the health side, the blood work, that's an awesome tidbit of like, okay, that's certainly an area. What about on the mental side? If we're looking to get mentally sharp, I love that you said, find your blind spots. So what's a way to help people find their blind spots on the mental capacity side? Because man, sometimes, it's like, as soon as somebody says like, oh, I know where my blind spot is, you're like, oh my gosh, that's not how blind spots work. You can't see it. That's why it's called a blind spot.
Yeah. And we say the phrase a lot, test, don't guess, where you think you know what your problems are, but until you test, you never know. And so, there's cognitive function tests.
I've never heard that phrase before. That's I'm going to borrow that.
Test, don't guess. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Because, the question is you do the initial, blood lab testing, but then the question always ends up why? Why are these markers abnormal? What do I need to fix? How do I address these? And what other downstream issues are they causing? Are they causing issues with cognitive function and memory and focus and reaction time and endurance? And great example. One of my clients,
is the blood work the only way to start, like the only place to start to go about the mental blind spot finding thing? Or is that just like you really recommend it?
So we do blood lab testing. We do stool testing. Look at the microbiome, which is really the balance of microbes in your gut, controls neurotransmitters in your brain. It controls hormones. It controls your immune system. It controls almost everything is somehow tied to the gut. And so we do a lot of gut health testing. Great example. One of our clients, Marco, he is a race car driver. And when he first came to me, his issue was focus on the track. He felt like he's going 200 miles an hour on the track, and he felt like his decision-making was off. Something was wrong in his mind. And that's pretty important as a race car driver. And so for Marco, we found that he had gut health issues. So I'm glad you brought this up. And then we did food sensitivity testing, and it showed, of all things, that he had systemic inflammation as a response to bananas and coffee. And guess what Marco had for breakfast every day before that test?
Bananas and coffee.
And those foods aren't bad, but for him, because of his gut health issues, in particular for him, we had to clean up his gut, fix the gut, and some complex work to be done there. But for him, that was his blind spot. That was the issue. And when we made that one little tweak, he said it was like a light switch went on, and his reaction time improved. His endurance improved. His focus improved. And he goes out, and true story, Marco set a Guinness World Record for long distance endurance racing after we made that correction. And so that's the power of how little things can be big things.
That's amazing. Okay. So one, I'm really bought into the testing methodologies 100%. I can see the value and the opportunity to make sure that you are testing. Are there other methods outside of those particular testings though, where if somebody's like, yeah, I kind of want to do that, but I want to see what this guy comes up with outside of me having to pay for these tests first? where would you send those people in regards to their blind spots?
So I have another phrase I like to say, and that's one size fails all. And so people are always coming to me. They'll ask me, what supplements do you take? What magical peptides are you using that I should take as well? And all this noise you hear online about what's the perfect diet and what should I be eating? It's carnivore and paleo, Mediterranean and keto, and all these nootropics, these supplements I could take to improve my cognitive function. And I like to say one size fails all. Instead of one size fits all, one size fails all. And what's right for you is going to be very different than what's right for the next guy. And so the answer is I can't tell you until we do the testing to know what's right for you. And so, yes, we do cognitive function testing as well. Yes, we do salivary hormone testing. We do gut testing, and we do imaging. Cardiovascular imaging, I think, is so important as well. The functional testing, all of this stuff put together paints that picture to help you understand what's broken, what needs fixing, and how do I do so?
Absolutely. So instead of saying this, I love the quote, by the way, one size fails all. Once again, man, you're giving me these one-liners that are going to be really helpful.
Use these nuggets. You got it, man.
I love them. They're huge. So, but when we, instead of overgeneralizing, right, it's kind of like, okay, if you're immigrating to the US from Nicaragua, I can build a pretty solid path knowing that their goal is immigration and their goal is from that specific country. Can't guarantee them anything, right? I got to put a disclaimer on that this is not something everybody should follow, even though it's from Nicaragua, but I can create a more or less path. So I'm just trying to dive in deeper onto this blind spots thing without having to do your tests. Are there other things that can help certain segments of the market start to self-diagnose and realize, man, you know what? I got some answers without Tracy.
Yeah, sure.
Now I'm inspired to go and work with Tracy on these things.
Yeah. So what I can share with the listener would be some health tips, some health hacks that you can start to leverage today and start to see some results from that, some quick wins that can help you see that yes, there's some foundational stuff that applies to everybody. So, when it comes to nutrition, one of the first things I'll tell you is focus on protein intake. Okay, so we'll go through the different categories. We'll start with some nutritional stuff that will help move the needle for you, at least to get started in the right direction.
Awesome.
And then the testing help refine. I think that's probably sounds like what you're looking for. So
I'm just diving deep. I'm just diving deeper and deeper because you keep giving more and more value. So I'm like, all right, let's keep going down this rabbit hole.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when it comes to nutrition, one of the foundational principles is protein first. And for most people, that equates to as much as 1 gram of protein per day per pound of body weight, ideal body weight. So that means for most men, if you weigh 160 pounds, you need to be eating about 160 grams of protein. That's over 50 grams of protein per meal. That's a lot of protein. A chicken breast has 20. So you need to be very intentional about how am I going to get my protein in today? What's on my schedule on my meals to get my protein? And so that could be things like for breakfast, for example, eggs are a great source of protein. You could do turkey bacon. You could do Greek yogurt. I do no sugar Greek yogurt. Each one of those has 12 grams of protein. You could do cottage cheese, low fat cottage cheese, no sugar, great protein. A whey protein shake with some blueberries, strawberries, ice, and water. That could be 40 grams of protein right there. You could do a chicken breast for lunch. My son, my 11-year-old son, he'll stick a chicken breast in the air fryer in the morning for 12 minutes and then put it in a stainless steel container. And now you have lunch, a healthy lunch that has a good amount of protein. So awesome. Focus on protein first. Hydration is a big thing. A big reason why people don't lose weight is they're dehydrated. So focus on literally a gallon of water a day of intake. Be sure you're using a stainless steel container with filtered water. So we'll talk about toxins in a moment, but hydration is such a big part of nutrition. And then just eat real food. We have to personalize when it comes down to what's the right meal plan for you and macronutrient ratios and what type of diet might be best for you based on your genetics. We do a lot of genetics to understand as well. But start with just simply eating real food that comes from the ground or grows from a plant or was alive at one point. If you eat meat, and get away from the packaged stuff. So that's some basic nutritional principles. When it comes to sleep, one of the most foundational, fundamental aspects of health that people ignore, but it's so freaking important, is sleep. And you'll find that if you focus on optimizing your sleep, it's a game changer for you. And you'll be so much more productive and efficient during the day if you get that good quality sleep. And so 5 things to do in the last 2 hours before bed. You need to focus on no iPad, no phone, no laptop, no blue light of any kind. Okay. And blue light blocking glasses are great. If you can watch TV, very little blue light from TV. It still has some, wear blue light blocking glasses. But 5 things you can do in the 2 hours before you go to bed besides using those devices. Number 1, read a book. We've mentioned a few books earlier. So many great books. Spend time in the evening reading a book. Nothing calms the mind. You mentioned earlier about, focusing on mindset. And one of the best things you could do is simply reading, educating yourself. And it's actually calming and relaxing as well. Number 2 is journaling. So incredibly important to document your day, document your wins. Again, gap in the gain concept, and show gratitude. Document what you're grateful for, what you're thankful for every freaking day at night before you go to bed.
Just so you know, this is phenomenal. Keep
Oh,
going.
yeah.
Journaling. Whew.
Number 3, meditation. I'm a surgeon. I'm a science guy, and I am one of those guys who was always a skeptic. But there's actually clear science behind the power of mindfulness and meditation. It actually changes genetic expression, and it can help change almost every part of your body through mindset. And so meditation can be simply 10 minutes twice a day. And if you're used to meditating, make it a daily practice, daily habit. Again, going back to the concept of tiny habits, attach it to something, another anchor in your life to make it happen every night. Or if you're not familiar with it, get an app like Headspace or Calm, or there's a ton of apps on your phone. They're cheap and they'll help guide you until you're comfortable to do it on your own. So for beginners out there, get one of the apps and insist upon twice a day, morning and night, you're going to meditate. It's incredibly powerful to calm your mind. The 4th is sauna. You get a small sauna for your bedroom, goes on the floor. And sauna is a great way to calm your body before bedtime as well. 15, 20 minutes a day is incredibly powerful, especially in the evening. And then 5, nothing calms your mind and body better for sleep than sex. And so I wouldn't do any of those necessarily all at the same time, but those are great things you can do before bed to help really set yourself up for success. And then finally, a lot of people don't have good quality sleep because they set themselves up to fail. If you go to bed at midnight, you got to be up at 5:30. There's no way you're going to get your 7 hours of sleep. So you need to count backwards from when you have to wake up. And you need to be in bed by at least 7.5 hours before you need to wake up, preferably 8. So make that an intentional part of your life. Those 8 hours, 7.5 hours are so incredibly important. And then finally, track it. So Aura is a great device. It's validated against sleep study data. There are a lot of other devices out there, but track your sleep.
Work well?
Auras are definitely validated specifically for sleep. I wouldn't necessarily recommend them for HRV or other information for different reasons, but for sleep specifically, we want to look at deep sleep, which is the key restorative stage of sleep, and then REM sleep. And for those of you,
is that what you have on your finger?
Yep, that's what our Aura is right there.
Got the Aura, right?
That's right.
Man, okay, cool. Okay, so you
you want an hour of deep sleep, and you want 2 hours of REM sleep each night. And if you're not getting those, you need to ask why, and that's when we take it to the next level, and we can figure that out. So that's sleep.
That's fantastic.
We talked about nutrition. We talked about sleep. I want to bring up.
Go ahead.
Environment, toxins. So I talk a lot about the testosterone epidemic that we're struggling with, where T levels are about half what they were 20 years ago. And a big culprit is endocrine disruptors, which are toxins, chemicals in our environment, which are crushing our health. We're talking about chemicals in our drinking water. We're talking about herbicides, pesticide, chemicals in our crops, in the animals that we eat, in our food, personal care products. So focus on drinking filtered water. You need reverse osmosis with a carbon block filter. Very, very important to filter your water. No plastic water bottles. It's the worst thing you can do is drink water from a plastic water bottle. You're killing yourself with the chemicals that are leaching from the plastic water bottle, as well as the plastics themselves that are getting into.
Do you have I hate to ask this, but do you have a link like for the filter you recommend?
So I don't have a link for it, but I have one. I have no financial incentive or involvement, but Kinetico is a company that we use, and it's a great filter that you could put either under your sink. You could put it attached to the water filter of your refrigerator, or we have our entire house filtered so
I'm going to
that
be
every
adding
ice
those to the
maker.
reference link. So as you're listening, I'm going to add like a
Yeah.
sauna product, like a sauna things. You mentioned one
Yeah.
of those, and you
Sunlighten has
mentioned
a great small portable sauna.
which one?
Yeah. Sunlighten.
Sunlight. Perfect,
Yeah.
man. This is super helpful for all those who are
Cool.
self-starting, and
Yeah.
a big piece of this, my friends, is like as you get to know Tracy, and one, he's just come to bat and just dropped value bomb after value bomb of all these things that, I know enough about health to be dangerous, but because of that, no, I'm not optimized on all of these matters for my life yet. Some of them, yes. But it's time for me to start stepping up in some of these categories as well. So this is fine. One thing I'm grateful that you shared is that you were talking about the blue light and not integrating the blue light, but then you said TV is fine. And I was like, oh, good. Because I like to relax with usually watching like a quarter of a movie on Netflix, as part of the process for wind down.
Yeah.
But it does. It definitely helps me. But the book, the journaling, the meditation, you mentioned a lot of really, really great steps that all of us can take on our own accord while we're ramping up towards tracking all of this cool stuff, and it's not hard, but it's like learning to drive a car. And ironically, my friends, I was actually talking about this yesterday with some friends that sometimes we assume that, well, it's not hard and it's kind of easy, but no, if you put a child in a car and said, you know what, you'll figure it out, right? That child's likely to kill themselves. That would not go very well, right? Our body is a car and we aren't getting trained how to use it, how to drive it, how to do that appropriately. And so we end up driving a lot of our bodies into the ground. And we need this type of training from people like Tracy. And if we want to maximize this life, if we want the opportunity to have maximum impact and maximum capacity, then it's time to turn to somebody who knows how to maintain the car and learn all the little bitty steps necessary to optimize what our bodies are capable of. So, Tracy, you've done an awesome job of teeing us up with that today. I do have one final question for you. It's my favorite question to ask people. I never want to miss it. So if this was the last chance you had to talk to an audience, what
Yeah.
powerful lesson can other visionaries learn from your experience?
Follow your heart, follow your passion, and never freaking quit. So it is as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as a leader, it's a quiet, lonely path at times. And there's a lot of wins, a lot of losses, a lot of failures along the way, and those are fantastic because those help you grow, those help you learn, and those are almost more valuable than the losses, or than the wins. And
Right.
so stay true to your heart and your passion. Don't ever quit. And when you believe in your vision, it has no choice but to succeed.
Dude, I love that. I make space for a little bit of sacred reverence with that wisdom that's shared, because every entrepreneur who's been in the game for longer than 5 years knows the blood, sweat, the tears, the passion, the consistency, the reliability, the sacrifices, all the things that have to go into figuring out the full powerful truth of what you're talking about. And for me, it was worth it. Right. For me, it's like, oh my gosh, yes, that is exactly how I feel too. That's exactly what I'm going to lean into and keep moving towards. And when you build the right type of community and environment around you, and in my case, I believe that if it's God's will as well, then the outcome, right? You pay attention to the law of the harvest and do the principles of the law of the harvest, you're going to reap the reward. You're going to cultivate you're going to reap what you sow. And so you said that super, super well. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, thanks so much. I would, I'd emphasize the concept of living with intention. And we've talked a lot about, little tiny hacks and habits and tweaks in your daily life. I like to really emphasize putting all this together and talk about the tiny habits concept we talked about earlier. It's about momentum, and it's about building blocks and knowing that it's a long path forward, and it's easy to lose sight of that. And so, I talk about living with intention, and that means staying true to who you are and take one baby step forward every day, continue to build momentum. And that's when you're gonna start to really see success. And it's the gap in the gain concept again. Focus on the progress that you have made so far instead of some false construct of the ideal of where you're supposed to be. But it's all about momentum and living with intention.
I love that. This podcast represents an example of that, my friends.
It does.
I never started this podcast with the mindset of like, we have to get to X, Y, or Z. All right. When I started this podcast, my team kind of made fun of me after I finished going live because we didn't have anything. I just went live on Facebook. And they said, Jackson, that's not a podcast. You have to have this, that, and the other. And I said, it's my podcast. And they said, well, no, you got to have the RSS. And they said, Jaime, hold on. I said, not for my podcast. I said, if you want all that, you can go build it, but I'm just going to go live. And as we look up at the little ticker at the top that shows like 0 people watching or 2 people watching or whatever, you got to go through this mind game of like, you know what, maybe it's not about that. Right. And maybe that 2 people that's there, 1 people there, maybe they're the exact people who need to hear this. And I'm going to bank on that being the reality. Right. And then, but you mentioned intentionality. My intention was to bless the world with these interviews. My intention was to uplift and inspire the leaders that come in and interview with us. My intention was, what if this person's never been interviewed like this? And now they can go share this video with some investor, with some friend, or with some family member who has doubt in what they're up to, but now sees that they're like legitimately uplifted. And then there's that momentum aspect. If we stick with our intentions for a long enough period of time, or we do it the right way, we're constantly looking for ways to optimize that, then momentum actually does come. We're now a top 5% globally podcast, but I was never worried about that. I always just paid attention to what are we doing to serve the people that we're involving with this as best as possible. And as we focused on that, great things have come from it. So once again, one more powerful back to you, Tracy. Anything else you'd like to add?
Thanks so much. Yeah. So I always like to share gifts and provide more value. So there's a link that I think I saw you looking at earlier, but it's gapininstitute.com/launch. That's GAPIN institute.com/launch. You'll get a free copy of my best-selling book, Mail 2.0. You'll get a free copy of my Ultimate Peptide Guide. You'll get a copy of my High Performance Health Handbook, copy of my Peak Launch Masterclass, my TED Talk that I gave, and then there's a link if you want to reach out to learn more about how we can help you. There's a link to jump on a call with my team as well.
That's fantastic. And Vision Pros, you guys know it. We'll be adding all of these links to the action steps right below this episode. Below that, we'll put all the resource links as well. And then in the top right corner of the screen, you'll see up there a button that says Be Our Guest. If you've got your own vision to share, even if you're not at Tracy's level of sophistication and all these opportunities to optimize and not already crushing it with peak performance like he is, even if your vision's just getting started out, if you're willing to be authentic and open about that, we want to hear about it on Vision Pros Live. We want to see you on the show. And everybody, I hope you maximize 25. I hope that you're able to live in full abundance and move forward with everything that you need to bring your visions to life. There's 8 billion people out there who need you, myself, and Tracy to figure out what our purpose is, what are we doing giving back, and how can we go out there and help. And we'll see you all on the next episode of Vision Pros Live. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out